Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hate something. Now, I'm gonna say one thing that is a little bit interesting that I didn't find out until today. Apparently, the day this episode comes out, May 10th, is the 3-year anniversary of me starting my YouTube channel. Well, no, not necessarily. I mean the anniversary of me actually posting videos. You know, I technically started this channel a little bit before then in preparation for getting this channel. But basically, you got my point. The point is that this is technically the 3-year anniversary of me being a content creator. And let's just say a lot of things have happened in those 3 years. I've gotten to a little over 500 subscribers. We've seen a lot of lefties get elected. It's funny that I actually technically started, this isn't even this is just a real thing. I started my show before AOC got elected. I was in a pre-AOC world. I actually wanted to even go so far as to say maybe I had more prominence than AOC because I started before AOC, but no, she's similar to me, started a little bit before actually getting off the ground. I've made a couple of bros and sisters and non-binary pals. I've lost some of those pals along the way, but the ones I lost were grifters anyway, so who cares? I've learned a bit more. I've learned things about myself, but basically, you get my point. It's been an interesting ride. Let's see if I go through for another 3 years. I would assume so. I can't really particularly see anything that would make me not want to do the show anymore. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, we're going to talk about Israel. Israel has two major things going on right now. First, we're going to talk about the Israeli conflicts. But then again, when are we not talking about Israeli conflicts in U.S. political scene? Basically, here's what's happened. There is a place in East Jerusalem called Sheikh Jarrah. It's a neighborhood where numerous Palestinian families are going to be evicted because Israel's hey, this land's ours. Sorry. And it's even more egregious considering this is happening in the middle of Ramadan, a Muslim holiday, and there's been a bit of a conflict, to say the very least. And apparently, Palestinian youth started throwing rocks at some Israeli police officers, and there was a shootout, basically, firing rubber bullets and using stun grenades to stop the Palestinian youth at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And at this point, 205 Palestinians and 17 officers were injured in the nighttime clash, ironically at the third holiest site of Islam. Now, while that's one conflict, there is actually another conflict going on regarding the Knesset. A thing that is very common as well. Benjamin Netanyahu has missed the deadline to form a government, so they're moving on to Plan B, getting the second largest person in parliament, Yair Lapid, from the party Yesh Atid, to basically they're telling him, hey, now your turn, you form a government. Being given until June 2nd to form a government, to which the president can either extend it again, or basically say, Knesset, just vote independently of your party. Because as of right now, basically, they're doing it via party route, where the whole party will coalesce around one person, which is a problem because not every member of the parties agree. Now, here's the thing. As of right now, there was actually a plan for this ahead of time, but that plan isn't even turning out as well as they hoped. You see, Lapid had actually already started having talks behind the scenes, talking about okay, what are we going to do now? And basically, he has made his own little coalition called the Anti-Netanyahu Change Bloc, which includes him, Benny Gantz's Blue and White, Labor, Yisrael Beitenu, New Hope, and Meretz. A very large coalition of parties. Some of them are left-wing, Labor and Meretz. But some are, some are more right-wing, like Yisrael and New Hope. Yesh and Blue and White are sort of the centrist parties of the group. But basically, that still does not give them a majority. That still leaves 51. They still need 61 votes. So that's 10 more votes that they don't have. Those aren't all the parties. There are still 6 more. Well, technically 8, but we'll get to that in a second. But the remaining parties are not necessarily willing to form a coalition with people who oppose Netanyahu. For starters, there's Likud. Why would they form a coalition against Netanyahu when they are Netanyahu, pretty much? Like, I mean, at this point, they literally don't even have an ideology anymore. They literally are just the Netanyahu party. Other parties that have been super supportive of Netanyahu include Shas, United Torah Judaism, and the Religious Zionist Party. Those parties are all on the basically hard right and super Zionist. So there's no way they're going to form a coalition with someone who is, not anti-Zionist, because I don't think Yesh Atid is anti-Zionist. I think they're more of just like, oh, we believe in two-state solution. Yeah, their platform is secularism, anti-clericalism, liberal Zionism, and two-state solution. So yeah, they're not necessarily going to be in favor of that, because a lot of these parties are the super religious Jewish parties. But that still leaves 3 parties, technically 5, and this is the trickiest part of them all, because without these parties all choosing, or at least some of them joining up in a coalition, there's a big problem, especially considering parties have stated they do not want to be part of coalitions with other parties. First, there is Yamina. Yamina has 7 MPs, and basically has stood firm in saying, we will stay as one. We're not going to join a coalition with anybody. But Lapid is basically trying to butter them up as much as they can so that they can form a coalition. However, that's where a problem begins. You see, in order for him to get that coalition to be firm enough to actually stand a chance against Netanyahu, he would need to form a coalition with not just them, but also the 2 major Arabic parties in the area, Joint List and the United Arab List. But both of these 2 parties don't necessarily see eye to eye, because Joint List is a broadly left-wing coalition of Arabic Israelis, but United Arab List is a hardline anti-Jewish party, being extremely right-wing and full-on anti-Semitic. The United Arab List used to be part of the Joint List, but then they broke away. And you see, that's another thing. The Joint List is actually a coalition of 3 parties, Hadash, Tal, and Balad, and even then, those parties don't even see eye to eye. Hadash and Tal want to endorse Lapid out of the get-go, whereas Balad, their 1 NP, does not want to endorse anybody. But here's the thing. In order for the coalition to work, he needs Yamina and the Joint List, at the very least. He needs those 2, but the problem is, they don't want to join a coalition with each other. Joint List is open to joining a coalition with him, but they say, if you even consider talking to Yamina, that's it, you're done. We're not joining a coalition with you. And so far, those 2 Joint List parties have basically said, okay, we'll give it to you, we'll give our endorsements to you on the condition that you do not join a coalition with Yamina. And so far, Lapid is basically trying to see where the balls roll, pretty much. And at this point, he still has only 56 people who will vote for him. Again, not the 61 that he needs in order to win. Which is why a lot of people are trying to push for the idea, just let the Knesset vote. Let each member of the party make their own decision, which could work, but also probably couldn't work. Let's be honest, if you just let all the members of the party pick whoever they want, there's a good chance they might just vote for their own leaders, which is probably going to lead to a lot of more trouble. So basically, we don't know what's going on with the Israel Knesset at the time being, and all we can do now is wait and see how this coalition pans out. The best case scenario really at this point is to form a coalition to stop Netanyahu and then make it so that you have a clear plan moving forward before they even think oh, let's just do something else. I spent almost 9 minutes talking about technically one story, and I haven't even touched any of the other stories, and we have a lot more to go through, so let's go through them quick. First, Mexico. There's not much news here, all there really is to say is that the INE might be having another gubernatorial trouble. You see, the San Luis Potosi gubernatorial candidate Monica Rangel might also be getting kicked off the ballot because she didn't file necessary paperwork at the time being. That's definitely a problem. I don't know if that's really going to pan out. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if the gubernatorial troubles are not over yet. Now, on to a good story that I really like. Nina Turner is going to 100% win her congressional seat. That is 100% obvious. Anybody who doesn't think so doesn't literally know anything. And you can tell that she's, like, winning because Chantel Brown, her quote-unquote main opponent, is scared. Like, she's literally begging for super PAC help. She's literally going to, like, the PAC that tried to save Elliot Engel and basically saying, please, please give me money. And it's like, this is so sad, really. If there was a race where the roles were reversed and it was like a corporate moderate Democrat that was like easing past like the progressive, the moderate Dems would literally be saying, come on, bro, just give up already. It's over. And yet Chantel and literally every other corporate Democrat ever has to keep fighting to the very end because they can't accept the fact that they're going to lose. Okay, so now let's move on to two stories that I didn't think were going to happen, that I didn't think I was going to talk about ever again, but we're going to talk about Donald Trump some more. Now, you see, here's the thing. Well, a lot of the top, like, lefty channels have been saying, like, oh, yeah, Donald Trump did that, freaking, like, social media thing, and haha, it turns out he actually, like, it's just him posting stuff, haha. It's like, that's not important at all. I don't care. I really do not care. But here are arguably way more important things that the Trump administration did. Turns out, Donald Trump's DOJ threatened MIT researchers with subpoena in collaboration with the Bolivian coup regime. Basically, here's what happened. There were some MIT investigators that were basically trying to, like, figure out, like, hey, let's actually analyze, like, the whole thing that was basically saying, like, oh, the Bolivian elections were rigged, and that's why it's okay to, like, overthrow Evo Morales. They were trying to look into it, but then the DOJ apparently was like, hey, we're going to subpoena you if you look into this. Yeah, that's, it's definitely a lot more than, making funny fake social media account. But then again, here's another thing. Donald Trump secretly obtained phone records of Washington Post reporters. President Donald Trump's Department of Justice secretly obtained phone records of multiple Washington Post reporters, the newspaper reported on Friday. According to the Washington Post, the three reporters who were looking into Russia's role in the 2016 election each received a letter from the DOJ dated May 3rd. The letters informed that they were hereby notified that, pursuant of legal process, the United States Department of Justice received toll records associated with the following telephone numbers for a period from April 15th, 2017 to July 31st, 2017. Yeah, that is... You see, that's kind of why a lot more of the clickbaity stuff is definitely a lot more... Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of these bigger YouTube accounts, like Secular Talk and Humanist Report, like... They both did episodes on, like, the Trump, like, social media thingy, and it's like, haha, I get it, it's funny, it's like, but right now, we just received word that the Trump DOJ was doing this stuff, and that's what you choose to talk about? This is, like, policy-oriented. Donald Trump, he got the phone numbers and stole phone records from reporters who were looking into him. This is something you should be talking about. Especially considering you guys keep trying to say, like, oh, well, you know, we gotta talk about, like, the mainstream media and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I like your videos. Not those ones, but, I mean, I'm just saying. Maybe, I get it, you know. You gotta play the game. What's popular? What gets clicks? And, yeah, Orange Man doing something stupid gets a lot more clicks than... Oh yeah, Orange Man did this very, very policy-heavy thing. I mean, I doubt either of you are watching right now, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you are, you know what I'm talking about. But then again, maybe that's why. Maybe, no, on second thought, keep doing what you're doing. Because you know why? That means they come to me for more information. Thank you. Anyways, the last story of the day is basically something that was a development story. I actually bookmarked one page and then had to bookmark another page because the story changed in not that long. You see, basically, here's what happened. There was a huge controversy surrounding Joe Biden and vaccine patent waivers. Basically, here's what's happened. There was a promise that Joe Biden made during the campaign where he would, waive the patents on the COVID-19 vaccines. Now, for those who don't know what that is, patenting a vaccine basically means, you own it. You have the exclusive right to make it. But if he waived the patent, then basically anybody would have access to, how to make the vaccine so they could make cheaper versions of the vaccine, which benefits poorer countries greatly because they don't necessarily have the money to buy all the vaccines from Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. They don't have the money to pay for, the high-end vaccines. They would have to, basically, it's the equivalent of getting, Frosted Flakes versus Frosty Flakes. Or, what's some other, off-brand thing? Go into the store and get, I don't know, you know what I'm talking about, the off-brand stuff. Basically get the cheaper version, the grand value version. Instead of getting Fruity Pebbles, get Fruit Rocks. It's a cheaper alternative, but you're essentially getting the same product for a fraction of the cost. $2 for Frosted Flakes or $1 for Frosty Flakes. However, Biden has not really been pushing that as much as he should have. And many people are yo, Biden, we got the vaccines now. The vaccines are, the vaccines for adults are pretty much done. So why aren't you waiving the patent? And a lot of individuals have been trying to, do damage control. Big pharma individuals have been basically trying to be no. You see, we need to keep the vaccine waiver. We can't waive the patent because blah, 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 blah. They didn't really give any reason for it. But they kept saying, oh, it's a good thing that we need to keep the patent on. I forget what the exact reasons were, but I assume some of the main BS reasons would probably be oh, we want to make sure that the vaccines live up to our expectations or some crap like that. But basically, a lot of people just didn't buy it, and a ton of progressives signed a huge letter. It was led by Jan Schakowsky and had a ton of progressives sign it, basically saying waive the rights, waive the patent. We want the pandemic to be done, right? That was the whole point of us electing you, correct? So, waive the damn patent so we can get one step closer to normalcy. A.D. Barkin shared an interview that he did where he basically was hey, bro, waive the vaccine, waive the patent. And then Biden's yeah, of course I'll waive the patent. And he's well, Joe, TikTok. And lo and behold, Biden has done just that. He's announced that his White House has announced that he will be waiving the IP rights for vaccines. Or the COVID vaccines. I don't know about any other vaccines. People have been trying to say, okay, now it's time to do the insulin. Let's do that. But basically, he's okay, let's focus on this one issue at a time. I don't know if there's been any developments where Biden says he's not doing this. But so far, it's yeah, this is happening. He's going to be waiving the IP rights for vaccines. So now, it's it seems okay, all right, this is good. If this happens, then this is good. He's I was hesitant. I was saying I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I didn't vote for him at all because he couldn't sign off on all the bad things I thought he was gonna do. But basically, it's of course he would probably be better than Donald Trump. But I don't know by how much. I don't know if I don't know. I didn't know at the time. And well, he's definitely getting in that direction. Basically, up to this point, I guess it would be somewhat similar to. He would be somewhere close to the same level as Trump, but not as bad. Trump is -5, and then Biden just starts back up at 0. So it's you only have to go up up 1 to be I would officially consider better than Trump if you just ride the wave and then you did nothing, so you get nothing. But so far, it seems that he's doing fine. And yet somehow, I shouldn't say somehow, because we all knew this was going to happen, people still found a way to complain about it. And the reason being is that this huge anti-Biden left are basically a bunch of anti-vaxxers who don't want to do anything except complain about things. These guys are literally just contrarian idiots who don't know anything about politics. They don't understand anything about politics. And if they claim they do, they literally don't, because you can give them the most basic thing about politics and they'll literally just be like, what? And it's legitimately to the point where it's like, it's so grating. And they're basically like anti-vaxxers. Well, I mean, I should be wary. Not all of them are anti-vaxxers. Just so happens that a lot of the leading figures happen to be anti-vaxxers. Coincidence. Really weird. Isn't that right, Pat the Burner? That's a little weird. But guess what? You see, unlike you, I happen to believe that everybody should get criticized. And it's time for more criticism to happen your way at one point in the future, Pat. Although, to be fair, I don't really care that much about Pat. So, I mean, I didn't care about him before. He was like, oh, he tweets? Like, that's nothing. Like, literally, that is nothing. Like, I mean, on the lefty tier list of people, there's like podcasters, they make content. They're the people who like protests and like organize protests on like social media. And then there are people who just tweet on social media. And that's basically Pat. Now I know you're probably gonna get I'm probably gonna get a bunch of Pat fans who are gonna be like, actually, Pat does this. It's like, well, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, bro, but that's all I knew Pat by. He had a Twitter account, the end. So yeah, now that we got all that out of the way, now let's move on to the main topic of this video. Now you might obviously know, this isn't exactly what I was hyping up to be the main topic of this video. Well, yeah, it wasn't. My original topic of this video was going to be Nicaragua. Because basically, my plan was that I was going to go over some elections that were going to happen this year, from all around the world. Not just the United States, but give you a better broad sense of what's going on worldwide. And, I'll mention some of the ones I was going to talk about, like Nicaragua, Honduras, Germany. There's another one that I'm forgetting. Chile, that's what I'm thinking of, Chile. But for all of them, I was actually going to, wait a certain amount of time to see how things develop for the time being. I don't want to do them all in one row, because at this point a lot of them don't really have anything to talk about at this moment. Even Nicaragua, I didn't really have anything to talk about. There was only one person who was running, and I don't know if that's going to still be the case, but basically I was going to talk about what was surrounding the presidential election. But then I was on Twitter and Colombia was trending, so it's what's going on here? Then I do some digging and it's well, I guess I'm going to have to talk about this. Because this is something that is happening now. What's happening in Nicaragua is happening now, but this is all developing right now. At this moment. It started not that long ago. Literally, it started on April 28th. So this is been going on for almost a week. Almost 2 weeks. It's a little over 1 week old. So it's this is happening at this particular moment, and things are hitting the fan, or the helicopter blades, as we'll get into. But the point is, I guess I'll hold off on Nicaragua for the time being, and maybe Nicaragua will get some well-needed development going on at that moment. But just as a heads up, just as a spoiler for when that episode comes out, a lot of the stuff you're going to be hearing in this episode, you're going to be hearing in that episode too. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, what the heck is going on in Colombia? First, we should set up one thing. Who is the major player of this? Ivan Duque Marquez. He is the current president of Colombia. He represents a political party known as the Democratic Center. He won a grand total of 54.03% of the vote in the last election. The Democratic Center, as its name would kind of suggest, sort of comes a little bit. It's supposed to be more of the. It claims to be it's described as the center, but it is more of the right tendency. It is center left on broadly, but it is sort of in the same vein as, like, it ranges from the center right to far right, pretty much. So as you can tell, it's a pretty big tent. And it adheres to the ideology of a former president by the name of Alvaro Uribe, who was sort of the same neoliberal sort of tendency. And the way he's been governing is sort of similar in that vein. I wouldn't necessarily say he is definitely, like, to the, like, right. I mean, he is to the right, but he's not necessarily, like, far right. He's not the far right of his party. He would be more of the center right of his party. So again, similar in that neoliberal sort of vein. You know, market-oriented in a sense. But like many other Latin leaders, kind of wants to be seen as, like, the next, I don't know, like, it depends on their leaning. Like, they want to be as, like, the most remembered person, but also, like, not in the way that they think that their opponents want to be memorized. Like, for example, this guy, I don't think wants to be the next Pinochet. I would assume so, because I think this guy is smart enough to know, you know, Pinochet's not necessarily that liked. Now, other people like Jair Bolsonaro would definitely 100% be like, yes, I am the next Pinochet, but, you know, that's different. This guy wants to be remembered as a sort of different kind of leader. He doesn't want to be a Fidel Castro, and he doesn't want to be a Pinochet, but he wants to have that, like, name recognition. But anyways, back to what's actually happening. This all sort of started stemming around the COVID-19 pandemic. You see, much like a lot of other Latin American countries, he's not necessarily been handling the pandemic that well. Some have been handling it better than others, but he was not necessarily handling it the best. He was trying the best he could, like every other Latin country, except for maybe like Brazil and Nicaragua, but, you know, he's been trying. And one of his proposals that he pushed to try and help people during the COVID-19 pandemic is Ingreso Solidario, which is a universal basic income program that basically gives $43 a month to low-income people in Colombia, $516 a year, which converted to Colombian pesos is 1,948,058 pesos a year. If you want the monthly number, it's 162,338 pesos a month. So yeah, his plan was basically give these low-income individuals money so that they can afford things that they would need, like rent and such. 3 million out of 50 million Colombians were eligible for the payments. Now you might think, well, that's good. That sounds good. Well, yeah, it was good. It was so good to the point where the president of Colombia was basically like, hey, you know what? Let's expand this program. And in fact, let's make it a permanent program. Let's make it a permanent program and give 1.7 million more people access to this program. And it's like, yeah, that sounds good. So what's the problem? The problem was that he decided to raise taxes in order to pay for this, which is a slight problem because now a lot of these low-income people now have to pay a lot of their payments away to pay for. It's confusing, but basically, in the middle of a pandemic, your taxes are being raised, so that made people go, oh man, this can't get any worse. But it did, because around the same time, the legislator introduced Bill 10, which proposed making healthcare in Colombia a lot more privatized. Basically, what Colombia has now is sort of like a public option, sort of a little bit like Medicare for all, not necessarily. It's not like I don't think it's single payer, but it's a mix system. I think it would be considered multi-payer, I think. And this is all happening in a country that is experiencing the third highest number of COVID deaths in Latin America, which is also in the middle of a bit of a recession for them. So yeah, they weren't necessarily happy. In fact, they decided to start protesting against him, basically saying, hey, don't raise taxes, don't do the health reform, and in fact, while you're at it, resign. You've been doing a terrible job so far. You did a fine job a little bit, but we want more. If you're not going to do that, then how about this? raise the universal basic income to the point where it's our minimum wage. Why not do that instead? And things started getting a bit problematic the second, not even when this protest happened. It was the day before the protest began. The protest began on April 28th, 2021. But on April 27th, the judges stated, the judges of the Colombian system basically said, you can't protest anymore. We have told all the cities to revoke every single badge or anything. Anybody who had a permit to protest does not have those permits anymore. They're all destroyed, and basically you can't do it. And they even gave the basic excuse oh yeah, well COVID, we gotta protect people from COVID. But citizens were like, dude, stop. People have been protesting this whole, during the whole pandemic. And they've been doing it fine. You think we're idiots? And no, they're not idiots. They're Latin. Protesting and revolution is in our blood. And on April 28th, tens of thousands of protesters began starting to run around. And as you can guess, almost immediately, they started clashing. 2 people were killed on the first day of protesting. And, even though a lot of other people were able to manage to get out unscathed. And they started ramping up police, people coming around. 5,800 police officers would be deployed starting... they started getting deployed on April 29th. And at first, it was people who were mostly, just normal people. But then things started changing. Now the Central Union of Workers, one of the largest unions in Colombia, they decided to start getting involved as well. Because, coincidentally, it was around the same time that, it was April 28th and 29th. May 1st is right around the corner, International Workers' Day, so of course they were going to start talking about labor and all that stuff as well, which was definitely going to make protesting go up, because a lot of laborers, a lot of people don't have jobs, a lot of people need help, and a lot of people are workers, so naturally there's going to be a lot of people who coalesce. And despite the fact that protests started rising, the president had his feet firmly in the ground. He was basically like, no. I will not remove the tax reform. And it had to take the mayor of one of the biggest cities in Colombia to basically say, dude, the tax reform is dead. It's going to cause more deaths down the line. Stop. And it was only after the May 1st International Workers' Day protest that he said, alright, fine. The tax reform is dead. We're not going to do the tax reform. And people were like, okay, fine. But what's the word on that, healthcare program? You still gonna do that? So, let's talk about that. So they decided they were gonna continue protesting. And around the same time, obviously, the president kept sending more troops. If he wants the protest to end, maybe stop sending troops to make the protesters angry. I would assume that would be the biggest idea, the smartest idea to do. Let the people protest and then hear their complaints and then address their complaints. But no, these leaders, they don't think before they act. They think, if we just smash the protesters, they'll go away. No, that never happens. And in fact, they got angry because of the fact that he just says things that he's gonna do, and they're like, I have an idea. Maybe talk with us, and then you can meet our demands right then and there. But no, they didn't want to do that. And it eventually got to a point where it's definitely oh, come on. You're getting ridiculous. Because President of Ecuador, Lenin Moreno, and the Vice President of Colombia, Marta Lucia Ramirez, released statements on May 5th claiming that Nicolas Maduro was influencing the protesters in some way. And a lot of analysts are basically that's a bit of a stretch. They say there might be some people who might have ties to Venezuela in the protests, but in the same way that an American would probably go to a protest in France to express solidarity with Julian Assange or something. There might be some influence, quote unquote, but not in the way they're claiming. But of course they want the boogeyman. They want the socialist boogeyman. Ooh, Maduro's coming for you. Like, that's what they want. It's so stupid. And in fact, I don't even think that would work. Wouldn't that like bring more social solidarity in a sense? You know, because it's like, hey, if Maduro's doing this, how about this? Okay, why don't you send people over there? Hey, Lopez Obrador, why don't you send people over there? You get my point? Like, it's like, why? Why would you even try to claim that? Of course I know why they try to claim that. It's stupid. Why you would think anything else? They want to claim that because, again, it's the boogeyman. They want people to think evil, scary Maduro. But of course, what has been getting people's attention at this particular moment is the fact that these protests have gotten a lot of very heavy violence. The Human Rights Watch has basically been saying, yeah, this is very, very, like, this is clear big suppression, and people are, like, they're killing people pretty much. Like, they are. Here's the deaths. According to the Colombian government, 26 people are dead, but, you know, they're not necessarily the most reliable sources in this case, so let's talk about other people. The NGO estimates 37 people are dead, and also 89 people are missing, so I can guarantee you at least half of them are dead. There have been 800 plus injuries, and 500 plus people have been arrested. And an incident that has become sort of like I guess you could say the calling card for most people who aren't in the area. There was literally a Black Hawk helicopter that was literally sent to the protesters to shoot at them. And this is nowhere close to like other sort of like protest movements. Like Nicaragua, there's been some people who try to claim like, oh, well, technically they are doing bad things. They are trying to like overthrow the government. And it's like, well, no, they're just like, they're even saying like, oh, they're terrorists. The Gray Zone says that. Basically, this is very cut and dry, pretty much, because let me give you one story that really shows how cut and dry this situation is. Meet Lucas Villa. He was a protester and an activist. He basically went to all these protests, and, you know, his protesting was not really that bad. Like, he was, like, I mean, most protests, you know, like, they do the thing where they, like, stand and they hold a sign or the flag or do something, you know, pretty boring. But this guy was a bit different in his protesting. He was singing and dancing, you know, having a fun time, you know, getting the people, like, to join with him, you know, trying to bring some, like, light in the mood. Not all the people have to be 100% serious all the time. You know, sometimes you can relax with your protest buddies. Of course, we're all here for a very serious reason, but, you know, get everybody together. You know, show solidarity with each other. We're all one family. During the protest, someone shot him and 2 other people, and now Villa is brain dead. Now, while the government has said that they deny any involvement with this particular action, let's be honest, if you're a protester, who's more likely to shoot at you? Another protester? Or the police sent to disperse the protesters? I mean, it's a pretty cut and dry case. Like, he sent a literal helicopter to go shoot at the protesters. These are people. These are normal people that are just doing their thing. Now, with this comes the international response. Because, you know, people have been told, you know, you gotta respond to this. What the heck is going on? And a lot of individuals have been making it known where they stand on this issue. For example, a lot of Colombian individuals, such as Shakira. Now, I know it's weird that I mentioned Shakira, but, like, that's one of the names. She and other celebrities, such as, like people who are Colombian, but also people who are not Colombian, such as, like, Justin Bieber and, like, Kim Kardashian and Demi Lovato and other people, they've expressed their solidarity and sympathy with the protesters, especially the ones who have been, like, beaten and killed. And a lot of governments have also been trying to make it known where they stand on this issue. Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez has stated that he worries and he doesn't like the repression of social protests and is begging for an end to the conflict. The minister spokesman of Chile said the violations of human rights must be protected without nuances when he talked about the situation. The foreign minister of Peru reported that it was deeply regrets the acts of violence and victims that occurred in Colombia, and stressed that both countries are united by good relations and cooperation. The United States Department of State has asked Colombian government for maximum restraint on the part of public forces to avoid further loss of life, and people like Gregory Meeks and Jim McGovern have been trying to, quell the violence in their own way. The Attorney General of Venezuela posted a social media message saying, the Duque government is massacring the population and repudiates the criminal structure of a narco state, and has also questioned why a lot of people are really silent on this. Why is the OAS and the UN organization and the UN Commissioner on Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, why are they silent on this? Progressive National has condemned the police brutality in Duque's government, saying the world's progressive forces to answer its call and hold the Duque government accountable for in every community and every courthouse and every parliament where we work. But not everybody who is mad at this. For example, the former president I mentioned before, Alvaro Uribe, he has stated, "Let's support the right of the soldiers and police to use firearms to defend their integrity and to defend people and property from criminal acts of terrorist vandalism." And Twitter had to actually remove that because they said that glorifies violence. The same thing they did to Donald Trump when he was saying, protests in the streets, the election was rigged against me, bye-bye. Except, different people. I guess it would be more similar to when he said the Proud Boys stand back and stand by. Now that begs the question, what can we do? I guarantee a majority of us live in the United States of America or other countries, because a majority of the people who watch my show or are on Twitter are probably not from Colombia, and if they are, they've usually moved to a different area, like the United States. But the big question is, what can we do? Simple. What am I doing now? I'm talking about it. And that's what you should do too. Everybody, talk about it. Spread the hashtags expressing solidarity with the protesters. Share stories of the protests on social media. Don't share this episode. I would recommend not sharing this, because I don't want to make this about me. I'm just talking about this because it's an issue that I think should be talked about. If you're gonna share it, share it on Twitter, where I will put a hashtag expressing solidarity with the protesters. Share that tweet, and then you can click that thing, and then you can go to all the solidarity of the protests and retweet those things. If you're gonna retweet my podcast where I talk about it, by all means you can do that. But also, I would recommend retweeting all the actual stuff, on the ground stuff that's happening in Colombia. Tweet things in solidarity with them to show the people who might be able to see it. Say, hey, we support you. Since Jim McGovern's been calling it out, maybe share his tweet where he talks about it. Maybe this means he might introduce a specific bill that will talk about this issue. So maybe share that around if that ends up happening. If you're in Colombia right now and you haven't protested yet and you believe that you should, go ahead, go do that. Only if you want to do it and you accept the risks that you're willing to take, or you're able to do it in a way that makes it completely safe. I, as an American podcaster, have limited power, but it should be used. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or check my articles on the Independent Political Report.